The sky above Prime burned orange and red. High Counselor stood at the window of her command center and watched another orbital station fall. It broke apart in the atmosphere like a dying star, pieces of metal and glass scattering across the horizon. Somewhere in that wreckage were 300 of her people. She closed her 4 eyes and took a slow breath. "Counselor, the fleet has moved into final position," said Advisor from behind her. His voice was calm, but could see his hands shaking. "They will begin ground invasion within 6 hours." Turned to face the room. 12 advisors sat around a curved table, their pale blue skin reflecting the emergency lights. They were not warriors. They had given up violence 300 years ago. They had built libraries instead of weapons. They had created art instead of armies. And now the Dominion had come to take everything. "What news from the Galactic Council?" asked. Looked down at his tablet. "They refuse to send ships. They fear they will target them next. They express sympathy but will not involve themselves. He paused. They suggest we surrender and hope for mercy." "They do not know mercy," said quietly. "They know only conquest." She walked to the central display. 47 warships hung in orbit around her world. Each one was massive and dark, covered in weapons that could burn cities to ash. Below them, transport ships carried 200,000 ground troops. They had no army. They had security officers who had never fired a weapon in combat. They had scientists and teachers and artists. They had nothing. "There must be someone," said, "someone in this galaxy who will help us." "Every major power has refused," replied. "The minor species are too weak to challenge we are alone, Counselor." Stared at the display. The debris from their destroyed stations floated in a wide field around the planet. So much destruction, so much loss, and it was only the beginning. Then she noticed something, a small signal hiding in the debris field, a ship. "What is that?" she asked, pointing. One of the technicians checked his screen. "A cargo freighter, Counselor, human design. It was making a delivery when the invasion began. It has been hiding in the debris for 3 days." "Human," repeated. The word felt strange in her mouth. She knew very little about humans. They were a young species from a small planet far away. They had only been traveling between stars for a few centuries. Most galactic records described them as primitive, barely worth noticing. "We should not contact them," said quickly. "Humans are unpredictable. They come from a death world. Their planet is full of poison and predators. They are violent by nature." "Violent," said. She looked at the fleet on the display. "Perhaps violence is what we need." "Counselor, one human cargo ship cannot fight 47 warships." "No, but what do we have to lose by asking?" Opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. He had no answer because they both knew the truth. They had already lost. Surrender meant slavery or death. Fighting meant death. But perhaps, somehow, there was a third option. Walk to the communication station. Open a channel to the human ship. The technician hesitated, then did as ordered. Static filled the room for a long moment. Then a voice came through, rough and tired. "This is the cargo freighter Wandering Star. Captain 1 speaking. I was hopping, everyone forgot I was here." Leaned toward the microphone. "Captain 1, I am High Counselor of the people. We need your help." Silence, then a short laugh. "My help? Lady, I'm one cargo hauler hiding behind a chunk of your space station. What exactly do you think I can do against that fleet?" "I do not know," admitted. "But no one else will answer our calls. No one else will even try. We are going to die, Captain, all of us. They will destroy our cities and take our children and erase our history. I am asking you, begging you, to help us find a way to survive." More silence. Could hear the human breathing through the speaker. She could hear him thinking. "You know anything about humans?" he finally asked. "Very little. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme temperatures. Everything on our world wanted us dead. And we survived. You know how. How? By being too stubborn to die, and by fighting back against anything that threatened us. There was movement on the other end, the sound of buttons being pressed. You said that we'll begin ground invasion in 6 hours. Yes. Then I need information. Send me everything you have about their ships. Formation patterns, shield frequencies, weapon ranges, communication codes, everything. Stepped forward. Why should we trust you with our intelligence? Because I'm the only one who answered your call, one replied. And because I've got nothing to lose either. They killed my trade partner 3 systems ago, destroyed his ship for flying too close to their convoy. So yeah, I've got reasons of my own. Nodded to the technician, who began transmitting the data. One more question, one said. How well do your people handle zero gravity? The question was strange, exchanged a confused look with. We are comfortable in zero gravity, she said. Our stations required it. Why do you ask? Because I'm thinking of something crazy. Something they won't expect because no sane species would try it. What kind of plan? The kind that only works if you're desperate enough to try anything. One paused. I'm coming down to the surface. Have your best engineers and your bravest people ready to meet me. And counselor. Yes. When I tell you the plan, you're going to think I'm insane. You might be right, but insane is the only option you have left. The channel closed, stared at the display, watching the small cargo ship begin to move through the debris field toward the planet. Stood beside her. This is madness, counselor. One human cannot save us. Perhaps not, said. But for the first time in 3 days, I feel something I had forgotten. What is that? Watched the small ship descend. It was battered and old, clearly held together by repairs and determination. Just like its pilot, she imagined. Hope, she said. I feel hope. Outside, the sky continued to burn. The fleet waited, and somewhere in that burning sky, a single human was flying toward them with nothing but a cargo ship and a plan too crazy to speak aloud. They had made their last call. Now they would discover if humanity was worth believing in. The wandering star landed in the central plaza of the capital city. It was not a graceful landing. The ship's hull was covered in burn marks and patches. One of its engines sparked and died as it touched the ground, but it had made it. Waited with her counsel as the boarding ramp lowered. She did not know what to expect. The galactic records showed humans as small, fragile creatures, primitive, unremarkable. What walked down that ramp was something different. One was taller than she expected. His skin was brown and weathered, his black hair cut short. Scars marked his arms and one side of his face. He moved with a confidence that had never seen in any, like he was not afraid of anything, like he had already faced the worst the universe could offer and was still standing. He wore simple clothes, practical and worn. A tool belt hung around his waist and something that looked like a weapon was strapped to his thigh. His eyes scanned the plaza, then the council, then stopped on. High Counselor, he said with a small nod, thank you for not shooting me on the way down. We do not have anything to shoot you with, replied. We abandoned weapons centuries ago. One blinked, you don't have weapons at all. We have security tools, stun devices, nothing designed to kill. The human stared at her for a long moment. Then he rubbed his face with both hands and let out a heavy breath. Okay, that makes this harder, but not impossible. He walked toward the council and noticed several of her advisors step back. They were afraid of him. She could see it in their body language. Stood his ground. Human, before you share this plan of yours, explain something to me. Why would you risk your life for us? We cannot pay you enough to make it worth dying. You're right, you can't, one said. He stopped in front of and looked directly into his eyes. I'm not doing this for money. Then why? Because you asked, one shrugged. Because when I was floating in that debris field, I picked up your communications. I heard your people crying for help. I heard children asking their parents why no one was coming to save them. His voice hardened, and I remembered what it felt like to ask for help and have no one answer. The plaza fell silent, saw something in the human's eyes that she recognized. Pain. Old pain, buried deep but never forgotten. "Come inside," she said gently. "Tell us your plan." They gathered in the emergency bunker beneath the government building. One stood at the display table, studying the holographic map of the fleet. His ship's AI, Sung-ho, had transferred additional data to the system. The AI's voice came through the room speakers. "I have analyzed the formation," Sung-ho said. The voice was calm and measured, almost musical. "Their ships are positioned for intimidation, not efficiency. They do not expect resistance." "That's because there is no resistance," said. "We have nothing to fight with." "You have debris," one said. He pointed at the holographic field of wreckage circling the planet. "Thousands of tons of metal and equipment floating in orbit, your destroyed stations, your fallen satellites. They think it's just garbage." "It is just garbage," replied. "Garbage moving at orbital velocity." One smiled, and there was something almost dangerous in that smile. "On my world, we have a saying, at high enough speed, everything is a weapon." Stepped closer. "You want to use the debris against them." "I want to turn the sky into a minefield." One pulled up a series of calculations. "If we use your remaining ships to push and redirect the debris into specific trajectories, we can create collision courses with the fleet. They'll have to move, scatter, or take damage. Either way, we break their formation." "That is," search for words, "that is insane. The calculations alone would take days." "Sung-ho can do it in hours," one said. "The question is whether your pilots can execute the maneuvers." A young voice spoke from the back of the room. "They can if I help them." Everyone turned. A young female stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, with large eyes that reflected the holographic light. Her hands were stained with machine oil. "Who are you?" asked. "I am an engineer. I work on orbital mechanics." She moved to the display, studying one's numbers. "This is brilliant. Unconventional, but brilliant. We would need to modify the navigation systems on our remaining ships, but the theory is sound." "One engineer thinks it can work," said. "That proves nothing." "It proves someone is willing to try," one replied. He turned to, "Can you make the modifications in 6 hours?" "4 if I start now." "Good, then let's talk about Phase 2. The room grew quiet again, felt a cold sensation in her stomach. "Phase 2, she asked. One nodded slowly. "The debris will damage and scatter their fleet, but it won't destroy them. To actually win this fight, we need to take out their command structure. That means boarding their flagship and disabling it from the inside." "Boarding?" His voice was flat. "You want us to board an enemy warship? We have never boarded anything in combat. We have never been in combat." "I know. We do not know how to fight." "I know. Then how do you expect us to capture a warship?" One met his gaze without flinching. "I'm going to teach you. In the next few hours, I'm going to give your people a crash course in human warfare. Not strength, not brutality, survival tactics, how to move quietly, how to disable an enemy without killing them, how to stay alive when everything is trying to kill you." "Impossible," said. "Probably." One looked around the room at the frightened faces of the council. "But you know what's definitely impossible? Surviving this invasion without doing something crazy. They expect you to surrender or die. They don't expect you to fight back. They certainly don't expect you to board their ships and tear them apart from the inside." He walked to the center of the room. "I'm not promising victory. I'm not promising survival. What I'm promising is a chance. One chance to show and the whole galaxy that they are not helpless. That when you were pushed to the edge, you pushed back." Silence filled the bunker. Looked at her advisors, saw the fear in their eyes. But beneath the fear, she saw something else. the same thing she had felt when one answered their call. Hoping. I will lead the boarding party myself, said. Spun toward her, Counselor, you cannot. I am asking my people to risk their lives. I will not hide in a bunker while they fight. She looked at one. Teach me, human, teach us all. For the first time, one smiled. A real smile, not the dangerous one from before. Then let's get started, he said. We don't have much time, and I have a lot to teach you about being human. Outside, the fleet continued its slow approach. They expected an easy conquest. They expected fear and surrender. They did not know that deep beneath the surface, a human was teaching rabbits how to bite. The training hall had been a dance studio before the invasion. Now it was filled with volunteers trying to learn how to survive. One stood at the front of the room, watching 30 pale blue faces stare back at him. Some were young, barely adults. Others were older with gray patches on their skin. All of them looked terrified. First lesson, one said. Forget everything you think you know about fighting. You are not going to overpower They are bigger than you, stronger than you, and they have been warriors their whole lives. A tall male raised his hand. His name was One. He had been a security officer before the war, one of the few who remembered the old combat training. Then how do we defeat them? One asked. You don't defeat them, you survive them. One picked up a metal pipe from the floor. They are built for direct combat. Charge, attack, dominate, but they're slow. Their armor is heavy. In tight spaces, they have trouble turning around. He moved to the center of the room. You are faster than them. Your reflexes are better. Use that. Don't stand and fight. Move, strike, disappear, make them chase you. Let them get angry and make mistakes. For the next 3 hours, One taught them. He showed them how to move through hallways without making sound, how to disable door controls, how to use the environment as a weapon. He taught them pressure points on bodies where a small strike could cause great pain. He taught them how to work in teams, covering each other, communicating with hand signals. It was not easy. They had peaceful souls. Every time they practiced striking, one could see them hesitate. Violence did not come naturally to them. During a break, a thin male approached One. His hands were shaking slightly. I am young, he said. I am a medic. I joined to help the wounded, but now you want me to hurt people. One looked at him carefully. Do you have family? A sister, 2 young children who call me uncle. And what happens to them if they take this planet? Young's face went pale. He did not answer. They don't keep prisoners, One said quietly. They take slaves or they kill. Your sister, your niece and nephew, do you want them to live in chains? Or do you want to fight so they never have to? Young's shaking stopped. His eyes hardened. Teach me, he said. Teach me everything. Elsewhere in the bunker, was working on the navigation systems. Her hands flew across control panels while Sung-Ho guided her through the modifications. The human's plan requires precise timing, the AI said. Error margins of less than 3 seconds. I know, wiped sweat from her forehead. I've never done anything like this. Captain One has never done anything like this either, and yet he is trying. Paused. Why does he do it? Risk his life for strangers. Sung-Ho was quiet for a moment. When the AI spoke again, its voice was softer. When I was first activated, I asked him the same question. He told me about his past. He had a family once, a wife and daughter. Pirates attacked their colony when he was away trading. By the time he returned, there was nothing left. His hand stopped moving. That's horrible. He spent years blaming himself. He believed that if he had been there, he could have saved them. I do not think he has ever stopped believing that. The AI paused. I think he helps others because he cannot help them. Every person he saves is a chance to prove that he is not the man who failed his family. Looked toward the training hall, where she could hear One's voice giving instructions. He carries so much pain, she whispered. Yes, but he does not let it make him cruel, he lets it make him kind. Sung-Ho's voice brightened slightly. That is what I admire most about humans. They break, but they do not shatter. They keep moving forward. Returned to her work with new energy. In the training hall, practiced alongside her people. She was not skilled. She stumbled and fell many times, but she did not stop. During a rest period, she sat beside one on the floor. "You are a good teacher," she said, "patient." "I've had practice." One drank from a water container. "Taught my daughter how to fix engines. She was terrible at first. Dropped tools, crossed wires, nearly electrocuted herself twice, but she kept trying." "Where is she now?" The question hung in the air. One's face went still. "Gone," he said quietly. "Long time ago." Understood, she did not press further. "I am sorry," she said, "for your loss." Everyone loses someone. What matters is what you do after. One stood up and offered her his hand. "Come on, counselor, let's practice your footwork again." The hours passed too quickly. Soon, the alarm sounded. The fleet had begun moving toward attack positions. The volunteers gathered in the hangar where the boarding pods waited. These were modified cargo containers designed to slip through the chaos of the debris field and attach to enemy ships. They were not comfortable. They were not safe, but they were all they had. One stood before the group. Behind him, the wandering star hummed with power, had made modifications to the old freighter as well. It was faster now, more maneuverable. Still, but at least it had a chance. "In a few hours, you're going to do something that no has ever done," one said. "You're going to board an enemy warship and take it from the inside. You're going to face soldiers who have trained for this their entire lives, and you're going to win." One stepped forward. "How can you be sure?" "I can't." One met his eyes. "I'm not sure of anything, but I believe in something that they don't understand." "What's that?" "Desperation." One's voice was hard. "A cornered animal is the most dangerous creature in the universe. They think you're weak because you chose peace, but they don't know what you're capable of when you have no choice left. They don't know what it means to fight for everything you love." He turned to, "Before we launch, I need you to do something for me. If this fails, if I don't make it back, I need you to broadcast everything. Every recording, every image, every moment of this battle. Send it to every corner of the galaxy." "Why?" "Because even if we lose, the galaxy needs to see what happened here. They need to see that when they came to destroy you, someone stood up. Someone fought back." His voice softened. "Let them see that humanity didn't turn away. Let them remember that one human tried to make a difference." Placed her hand on his arm. In culture, it was a gesture of deep trust. "We will not fail," she said, "and neither will you." The hangar doors opened, revealing the burning sky. The fleet loomed above, massive and terrible. One walked toward the wandering star. "Time to show them what humans are made of," he said. "Let's go save your world." The engines roared to life. The battle for Prime was about to begin. The ships had done their work. Thousands of tons of debris now moved on deadly trajectories, turning the orbital zone into a storm of metal and fire. The fleet, arranged in their perfect intimidating formation, found themselves scrambling to avoid the incoming wreckage. From the command center on the surface, watched the battle unfold on the displays. He had doubted the humans' plan. He had called it insane. Now he watched warships break formation, their captains screaming orders as chunks of destroyed stations slammed into their shields. "3 cruisers have collided," a technician reported. 2 more have lost shield integrity. The flagship is moving to protect itself." Leaned forward, and the wandering star. The display shifted to show one's freighter. It moved through the debris field like nothing had ever seen. Where ships dodged and struggled, the human pilot danced. He flew between spinning metal fragments, using the chaos as cover, getting closer and closer to the heart of the enemy fleet. "How is he doing that?" whispered. On the wandering star, One's hands moved across the controls with perfect precision. Sweat dripped down his face. His muscles ached from the constant adjustments. Every few seconds, he had to make a decision that meant life or death. "Captain, an interceptor is approaching from starboard," Sung-Ho reported. "I see it." One pulled hard on the controls, sending the freighter into a sharp spiral. A chunk of debris passed through the space where they had been a moment earlier. "Warning, hull stress exceeding safe limits." Safe limits are for people who have options. One pushed the engines harder. Behind him, the interceptor tried to follow his path. It was not fast enough. A piece of broken satellite smashed into its side, sending it spinning away. In the cargo bay behind him, the boarding team held on to their restraints. The violent movements made several of them sick. Pressed herself against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. Sat beside her, monitoring the pod systems on a small tablet. "We're approaching the command ship," said. 90 seconds to launch point." Looked at her team. One sat with his eyes closed, preparing himself. Young gripped his medical kit like a lifeline. The others, young who had never known violence, waited with pale faces and trembling hands. "Remember what one taught us," said. "Stay together, move fast, trust each other." "Counselor," one said without opening his eyes. "I wanted to say, I am sorry for doubting you, for doubting him. Doubt is healthy, it keeps us careful." "Yes, but belief is what keeps us fighting." One opened his eyes. "I believe now, in the plan, in the human in us." The ship shook as another piece of debris passed close. "Launching pods in 30 seconds, Sung-Ho announced. "Good luck, it has been an honor to fly with you." The pod doors opened. Stars and fire and spinning metal filled the view, and somewhere ahead, dark and massive, the command ship waited. "Launch," said. The boarding pods shot forward into the chaos. Inside's pod, everything was noise and motion. The small craft spun and dodged, following a path calculated by Sung-Ho. Through the tiny window, watched the command ship grow larger and larger. Then impact. The pod attached to the hull with magnetic clamps. The cutting lasers began their work. "Breaching in 10 seconds, reported. Drew the stun rod from her belt. Her hands were shaking. She remembered one's words, "Fear is just your body asking if you're sure. Answer it." She was sure. The hull opened. They were inside. The command ship's corridors were dark and filled with smoke from the debris impacts. Warning alarms echoed through the metal walls. Soldiers ran past, too focused on the external battle to notice the small shadows moving through the maintenance tunnels. One led the way. He moved exactly as one had taught them, quick, silent, always checking corners. Behind him, the team followed in single file. They reached a junction. One held up his hand, "Stop." Footsteps heavy. A patrol was approaching. Pressed herself against the wall. She could hear her own heartbeat, loud in her ears. The soldiers passed the junction, their massive armored forms blocking the light. One of them stopped, turned, looked directly at the maintenance tunnel. For a terrible moment, thought they were discovered. Then another alarm sounded elsewhere in the ship. The soldier turned and ran toward the noise. "Go," one whispered, "now." They moved deeper into the ship. The engine room was guarded by 2 soldiers. They stood at attention, weapons ready, watching for intruders. They did not expect the attack to come from the ventilation system above them. One dropped first. He landed on the shoulders of one guard and pressed his stun rod against the creature's neck. The electrical shock sent the crashing to the ground, but one had misjudged the second guard's reaction speed. The swung its weapon toward him. One froze. In that moment he felt all his training disappear. He was just facing a warrior, prey facing predator. Then Young landed on the second guard's back. The medic had never hurt anyone in his life. His hands were made for healing, but he remembered one's words about his family, about what they would do to them. He pressed the stun rod to the guard's spine, and held it there until the creature stopped moving. One stared at him. "I thought you were a pacifist." "I was." Young looked at the unconscious. His hands were shaking again, but his voice was steady. "Today I am a survivor." Rushed to the engine controls. "I need 3 minutes to disable the primary systems." "You have 2, one said. "More guards will come." His fingers flew across the alien controls. She had studied technology from the intercepted data. She knew where the weaknesses were. One by one, she began shutting down the command ship's critical systems. Propulsion, weapons targeting, shield generators. "It's working," she breathed. "It's actually working." Outside in the battle above, one noticed the change immediately. The command ship stopped moving. Its weapons went silent. The other ships began to falter, losing coordination without their command structure. "They did it," one said. Pride filled his voice. "Those beautiful, brave people actually did it." "Captain," Sung-Ho said urgently, "the flagship is targeting the command ship." One's blood went cold. He looked at the display. The massive flagship, the largest ship in the fleet, was turning its main cannons toward the disabled command ship, Tord and her team. "They're going to destroy their own ship to stop the boarding party," one realized. "Charging weapons in 40 seconds. 40 seconds. Not enough time for the team to escape, not enough time for anything. Except one thing." One turned the wandering star toward the flagship. Sung-Ho, calculate a collision course, full speed. The AI was silent for a moment. "Captain, that trajectory will destroy the ship, and you." "Maybe, maybe not." One's hands tightened on the controls. "But if I don't do something, those people die for certain, and I'm not going to let that happen. Not again." "Captain." "Sung-Ho, it's been an honor." The wandering star's engines roared to maximum power. The old freighter, battered and patched, began its final flight. Directly toward the flagship's main cannon. The impact was massive. Fire and metal exploded outward as the old freighter tore through the weapon systems. The flagship's main cannon, moments away from firing, was destroyed completely. Secondary explosions rippled across the warship's hull as power systems overloaded. In the command center on the surface, watched the explosion light up the sky. His hands gripped the edge of the display table. "The human," he whispered. "Did he survive?" The technicians searched the debris. Seconds passed, then a minute. "There," one of them said, "a small object moving away from the impact zone. An escape pod, tiny and battered, tumbling through space, but intact." "He's alive," said. He felt something break inside him, walls he had built over years of careful doubt. The mad human is alive. In orbit, the fleet was falling apart. The flagship was crippled, unable to coordinate. The command ship was disabled, captured by boarders. Other ships, confused and leaderless, began to retreat. Some collided with debris. Others jumped to hyperspace without orders. For the first time in its history, the Dominion was retreating. On the captured command ship, watched the fleeing fleet through a viewport. Her body was exhausted. Her hands still shook, but she was smiling. "Counselor," said from beside her. "Ground command reports that the invasion transports are turning back. The ground assault has been canceled." "We won," one said. He sounded like he could not believe his own words. "We actually won." Young was treating wounded nearby. He paused in his work and looked up at. "The human," he said. "Is he safe?" Checked her communicator. The surface team had recovered one's escape pod. He was injured, burns, broken ribs, internal bleeding, but alive. The medics were taking him to the best hospital in the capital. "He will survive," said. "Because of him, we all will." The next days were filled with celebration and recovery. The debris field was slowly cleared. The captured command ship was brought to the surface as evidence of their victory. Messages flooded in from across the galaxy, disbelief, admiration, and requests for information. How had a pacifist world defeated the Dominion? How had they fought back against impossible odds? Answered every message the same way: we had help. One woke in a hospital bed 3 days after the battle. His body was wrapped in bandages. Medical machines beeped softly around him. Sunlight, real sunlight from a world that still existed, streamed through the window. Was sitting beside his bed. "You're awake," she said gently. "The doctors were not sure when you would wake. Human biology is complicated." Complicated is one word for it. One tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his chest. How bad? 4 broken ribs, burns across 30% of your body, severe bruising to your internal organs. Paused. The doctors say you should have died. Should have died is my specialty. Reached out and took his hand. In culture, it was one of the most intimate gestures possible. "You saved us," she said. "All of us. Every child who will grow up free, every family that stayed together, every future we will have. It exists because of you." One looked away. His eyes were wet. "I just did what anyone would do." No, his voice was firm. "You did what no one else would do. The entire galaxy refused to help us. Every species, every power, every ally we thought we had, they all turned away. And you, one human in a cargo freighter, you answered our call." The room was quiet for a long moment. "The Council has voted unanimously," continued. "We want to offer you citizenship, land, resources, anything you want. You can stay here for the rest of your life, honored and protected." One was quiet. He looked at the sunlight, at the blue sky beyond the window. "Thank you," he finally said. "Really, but I'm not the settling down type. I'm a wanderer, always have been." "We expected that answer," smiled. "But know that you will always have a home here. Whenever you need rest, whenever you need family, Prime will welcome you." "Family?" One's voice was rough. "I haven't had family in a long time." "You have one now. 30 million who will never forget what you did." A knock came at the door. Entered, followed by one and young. They carried flowers and food and awkward smiles. "We heard you were awake," said. "We wanted to see you." "And to thank you," one added, "for teaching us to fight, for believing we could." "You taught yourselves," one said. "I just showed you the door, you walked through it." Young set down a container of food. "This is from my sister. She wanted you to know that her children are safe because of you. She made your favorite human dish, or what she thinks is your favorite. She is not sure what humans eat." One looked at the food. It was some kind of soup, probably wrong in a dozen ways. He laughed and immediately winced from the pain in his ribs. "Tell her it's perfect," he said. Over the following weeks, kept her promise. She broadcast the recordings of the battle to every corner of the galaxy. Every species saw the footage. The debris field gambit, the boarding parties, the final sacrifice of a human pilot who flew his ship into a flagship to save strangers. The response was overwhelming. Messages came from dozens of threatened worlds, species who had been bullied by pirates, by empires that thought they were weak. They all asked the same question: how do we contact a human? The Galactic Council, the same organization that had refused to help Prime, called an emergency session, was invited to speak. She stood before representatives from 100 species. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow under the assembly lights. She thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the doubt, the desperate call into the void. And the human who had answered. "You want to know how we survived," she said. "You want to know how a pacifist world defeated the Dominion. I will tell you." The assembly fell silent. We called out in desperation, expecting nothing. A human answered. He was one person with one ship against an armada. Logic said he should run. Self-preservation said he should hide, but he came to us anyway. She looked around the room at the faces watching her. When he could have fled, he stayed. When he could have surrendered, he fought. When he could have saved himself, he saved us instead. He flew his ship into the enemy flagship to protect people he had known for only 3 days. Her voice grew stronger. The thought we were weak because we chose peace. They were wrong. Peace is not weakness. Peace is a choice that requires strength. And when that peace was threatened, we found the strength to defend it, because a human showed us how. She paused, letting her words settle. Perhaps it is time the galaxy stopped underestimating humanity. They come from a death world. They have fought to survive since the first moment they existed. But they do not fight for conquest. They do not fight for power. They fight for each other. They fight for strangers. They fight because someone asked for help. Lifted her head high. I asked for help, one human answered, and because of that my world still exists. She looked directly at the gathered representatives. If your worlds are ever threatened, if you ever stand on the brink of defeat with no hope left, make one last call. Call a human. You might be surprised what answers. Far away, on a repaired freighter called the Wandering Star, one watched the broadcast on his small screen. He smiled and turned the ship toward the stars. There was a whole galaxy out there, and somewhere in it, someone else might need help. He was ready to answer.